In the past month, many stars from the DC Extended Universe were handed their walking papers by the new sheriffs in town, James Gunn and Peter Safran. That has gotten fans worried about the ones who are left. Who will get to stay in their roles? Who's getting recast? Well, we know the answer for one more actor, so keep watching to find out whose fate has been revealed and what's next for them. First up, will John Cena continue playing Peacemaker? The answer is yes. Cena has been popping up on the WWE lately, and the 30th December episode of SmackDown saw him teaming up with Kevin Owens to smack down Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. But a week before that, Roman and his buddies were getting ready to solve their KO problem when Cena surprised them by joining the party through the big screen. He revealed that Kevin had texted him, letting him know that if he didn't turn up for a match on the last WWE show of 2022, he'd break a 20-year streak of doing at least one match every year. But if you're not a DC fan and not a WWE fan, you might not be too concerned about all of that. What's way more interesting is that Kevin addresses Cena as Peacemaker in the text. Now, because of how contracts and stuff work, Warner Brothers would never allow John Cena to keep calling himself Peacemaker if he wasn't playing the role anymore, which means that as of right now, Cena's staying in the DC universe. Gotta say, we didn't see that coming. This is honestly a massive relief. No offense to Henry Cavill, but he never got to make a long-lasting impression in his Superman role, so he really was kinda replaceable. But losing John Cena would have meant the same thing as losing Peacemaker altogether, and that would be a shame. Now, the question this leads to is what the announcement means for some other actors. Through his appearances in the Suicide Squad and his own show, Peacemaker is connected to a number of characters in what's going to be the former DCEU. If John Cena and his character are sticking around, it does raise the question of what that could mean for the other characters he's hung out with. In fact, back before the merger with Discovery and the DC Studios initiative, James Gunn was hard at work on season 2 of Peacemaker. So where does that leave us? Looking at the cast of Peacemaker, we can probably assume that Gunn wouldn't fire his wife, Jennifer Holland, from the role of Amelia Harcourt, or he'll find himself sleeping on the couch. Freddie Stroma, Danielle Brooks, and Robert Patrick were also really popular as Vigilante, Adebayo, and August Smith respectively, and they're a core part of the Peacemaker dynamic. Without them, you kinda don't have the same show anymore. And if you're keeping all these actors, you might as well hold on to Steve Aggie's John Economos. But if Adebayo is sticking around, so should her mom, Amanda Waller. In any case, Viola Davis has a pretty definitive take on the character that would really overshadow any attempt to recast her. As far as the Suicide Squad is concerned, the only cast member we would have expected to see is Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. She too is extremely irreplaceable, so fingers crossed. Moving on, you have to ask if this means Peacemaker can keep following the same story. Well, we think the possibility is there. If you think about it, the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker basically existed in a little pocket universe within the main DCEU. While they featured characters like Rick Flag, Amanda Waller, and Harley Quinn, most of the cast of these two projects were new to the franchise and had almost nothing to do with any of the other movies. Their core storylines were also unconnected to the wider DCEU, and the Suicide Squad tried especially hard to pretend that the other movie of that name never happened. So even if James Gunn decided to reboot the entire franchise, Peacemaker and a hypothetical sequel to the Suicide Squad could continue along the same lines that they've been going down. Sure, these projects did reference members of the Justice League, but we could retroactively apply Peacemaker's Batman argument to whatever Batman comes in the new era of the DC Universe. That being said, fans will have to forget about things like Waller meeting Bruce Wayne or Peacemaker meeting the entire Justice League and dissing Aquaman. Now keep in mind that this is just a possible way forward for the DC franchise, and all it would really accomplish is retaining a handful of the more obscure characters that were introduced in the DCEU. It doesn't help that, unlike the Guardians of the Galaxy, Gunn failed to elevate this bunch into the mainstream. Now, if we're being honest, just because you could doesn't mean you should. There's a reason why James Gunn has been so ruthless about getting rid of the current actors in the DCEU. Some of them were really popular, and fans would have preferred to see them star in new movies rather than getting recast. But while Gunn is keeping John Cena, and rumor has it that he's trying to keep Gal Gadot as well, making the hard choice here is important if he's to succeed in his efforts. Y'all know how fandoms are. If Henry Cavill ever appeared as Superman again, no matter how much Warner and DC Studios insisted that this was a new universe, people would try to find the connections between the past universe and the present. And fandoms in the 2020s are insanely powerful. Warner Brothers should know. The DC fandom practically willed Zack Snyder Snyder's Justice League into existence, taking a myth and turning it into a 4-hour-long alternate take on one of their movies. James Gunn is also keenly aware of the power fans have. When Disney kicked him out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe during his Twitter scandal in 2018, it was the outpouring of fan support that led Warner to hand him a Suicide Squad movie. It was also the reason why Gunn was allowed to direct Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 again. You can expect him to tiptoe around fan expectations, leaving little room for reinterpretations to gain steam. Also, another complicating factor in this situation is Marvel's multiverse. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is currently unfolding its multiverse saga, and despite what some pockets of disgruntled fans say, it's pretty good. In the superhero genre, the MCU has absolutely become the trendsetter. After all, the big motivator behind the DC Extended Universe was a desire to get in on the cinematic universe action. Someone like James Gunn is going to be wary of the appeal of something like a multiverse. After all, the franchise he's taking over was going to head down this road if the new CEO hadn't decided to put a stop to it. Indeed, The Flash is still set to come out this year, and its adaptation of the Flashpoint storyline isn't going to be about an alternate universe, but it might as well be. So why are we talking about multiverses? The fact that multiverses are so popular is the reason why Gunn needs to distance his DC universe as much as possible from the DCEU of Zack Snyder. The more actors he reuses from the DCEU, the more talk there's going to be about how Gunn and Snyder's universes exist in the same multiverse or whatever. There'll be comparisons to, say, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where we saw a number of strange variants that were all played by Benedict Cumberbatch. After years of DC being compared unfavorably to Marvel, what they need is to be as different from them as possible. With all that in mind, here's what we really think of the future of Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad. So the Peacemaker show is probably going to get cancelled, or best case scenario, rebooted. We'll be reintroduced to John Cena's Peacemaker in a brand new context, though we'll be losing all of his side cast. Gunn will have to sleep on the couch, but that might be worth it to ensure that his DC universe gets off to a good start. We're still pretty sure that Gunn will keep Viola Davis and Margot Robbie, and they're going to be part of a Suicide Squad movie along with Peacemaker. The funny thing about this is it will be the third time we get a brand new Suicide Squad movie. From there, Gunn could either give Peacemaker a more central role in the story, taking advantage of how fans are familiar with him, or use him as a way to ease audiences into a new story with new characters. It's a shame that this has to happen because the Peacemaker show was going in some really interesting directions. The guy had really fun chemistry with his friends. Adebayo playing double agent for Waller was intriguing, and the return of the White Dragon was going to take the show down a dark and topical path. But Scorched Earth is really the way to go for the DC universe right now. Half measures at this point will just compromise things yet again. But before we sign off for today, here's a tally of who's staying and who's going. It can be hard to keep track of all the firing and extensions going on at DC Studios, so we've gone ahead and rounded up everyone whose fates have been officially announced so far. In the out tray, we have Dwayne Johnson, who made it sound like he's only being left out of the franchise for now, but is still personally bent on playing Black Adam some more. His rival-to-be, Henry Cavill, has also bowed out of the franchise. Jason Momoa won't be playing Aquaman anymore, but he might end up recast as Lobo instead. Ezra Miller hasn't been announced as being out just yet, but come on. Moving to the in tray, we've seen that John Cena is sticking around. Zachary Levi also reassured fans on Twitter that the rumors of his ousting were untrue. Things are a little less clear for Zolo Maradueno's Blue Beetle, but Gunn sounded really excited about that movie on Twitter, which is a good sign. Finally, we have Gal Gadot, whose fate is shrouded in secrecy and rumors, and Ben Affleck, who actually will return to the DC universe, only behind the camera rather than in front of it. That's it for today's video. Are you happy to see John Cena survive the DC firing spree? What do you think the future of Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad will look like? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.